welcome back to part two of my first Racing Beyond Barriers podcast. Now, please watch part one before you watch this. Tom, do you think they're going to be doing this 10-second rev-in when they come in for tyres on their pit stop? Which to me means gone are the days of a sub 2 second pit stop.
It's going to be hard to say. There's going to be a lot of practice pit stops, I think, when Melbourne comes around. It may even come during practice sessions. Thankfully for them, they've got 3 practice sessions in Australia to get it right. But I reckon some teams are going to be on the back foot in the early phase of the year before they get their act together. I would say the pit stops will be slower to begin with. I won't say it's going to be 10 seconds long. I don't think it'll go to the realms of that. I think we're probably looking more like 4 to 5. But as the season goes on, I think it'll get quicker and quicker.
So they'll probably harvest or either harvest on the long straights, or they won't use that battery before they come in for a pit stop. And they might lift and coast, so then they can then put more power back into that battery. So then they can still potentially have the exact same pit stop. Obviously, we're just going to have to see how that plays out, aren't we? Let's talk about the boost mode then. This is another new addition. So at the touch of a button, this is maximum power, can be used anywhere on track for an attack or a defense. Though if a driver uses all of their battery, they might not be able to make the move stick, which is what we were just talking about. So to me, that's going to be a little bit more like double DRS zones. So, Brazil is typical. You overtake in the first DRS zone, but then the driver behind just retakes a position. So if the other driver has harvested or whatever's going on, and they've got a big battery and they're not in their own little strategy of a race with another driver, then they're just going to come straight back at the driver that's overtook them. But I think this isn't going to just be that black and white, because there's got to be so many more there's going to be so many variables of what that other driver is doing and what his race is and who he's racing, as opposed to does he bother to then retake that position anyway, depending on, if it's the front guys, of course, yeah, they're going to do everything they can. So I think there's going to be a lot of strategy, a lot of head games, a lot of playing with this kind of stuff. And I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing, if that's going to make it a bit more fun. But what do you think about that, Riz?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd probably defer to you and Tom probably more than just my opinion, because I don't really know anything and I didn't get to watch all the testing. But I feel like it's not going to solve any of the problems that like the FIA is trying to solve with like make racing more dynamic and more exciting. I don't think it's going to have that effect. I think it's going to be the same sort of like working up to an overtake, complete lose overtake. Like I think it's going to end up being pretty similar. But I think, most excited to listen to onboards and try to figure out what their secret codes are for different things.
Those strategists are going to be earning their money. They're going to be working their socks off with all of this. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts, Tom?
Just remind me of the question again, please, Elaine.
That's all right. No, it wasn't really a question. It was just more of an opinion on the boost mode aspect of the new regulation.
Well, I'm a little bit perplexed by it because there's obviously the straight mode and there's the cornering mode. Now, just there is specific terms to describe what they are. If I can get those up again, if that's all right with you, because I'm still getting my head wrapped around the new regs in terms of what is what and what are the purposes of them.
Yeah, that's all right. This is what this is for. But the boost mode is a button, and the overtake mode is what's replacing DRS. So that's a completely different thing. So overtake mode is what you're going to use on the straights and corners, as in the using those wings. And the boost mode is just something that you can push.
Yeah,
You get
so
extra battery from the boost mode, right? Extra power from the battery from
Yeah,
that.
it's like a
yeah,
turbo boost.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's almost like the days of Curse, if you remember, LA.
Of course.
during the VAT. Yeah, that is a throwback. So what I've got in front of me is that there is something called a Z mode or Z mode, as Riz would call it, as the default high downforce setting, which the front and rear wings keep grip high under cornering. Now the X mode, which is the straight line speed mode, is a low drag configuration where the wing elements open up. So unlike DRS, this is not just for overtaking. Drivers will use this on straights to maximize efficiency and speed regardless of the traffic in front of them. Which it might deviate away from what you said about the boost, but that's what I've got in front of me in terms of understanding the new regs.
Yeah, I mean, it does slightly because that's then moving on to the overtake mode, which is fine. So then we're moving on to the overtake mode, which is what replaces DRS. And what that's for, in as well as being like DRS, it's also to help offset that harvesting. So what they're going to do at full throttle, at 100% throttle, is they're going to be repowering that battery, but that will make the car slower because it's taking some energy off the throttle, even though you're on 100%, to put energy back into the battery. So then this overtake mode, these wings are going to then help the cars go the same speed or quicker while you're reharvesting that battery, while you're reharvesting energy for that battery. I can see and I can understand, what's happening and why, because you do need to get energy back into that battery, for for your overtakes and for your just the pit stops, or or whatever. um the overtake mode, though, when you're changing the wings, and like I said, we've seen the Ferrari one doing a 180, which is awesome. That can only be used like DRS if you're within 1 second of a car. So if you're not within 1 second of a car, you're not going to get the assistance on the straights when you're harvesting. I mean, obviously, you also harvest the energy one in corners as well, and they're still going to be lifting and coasting as well to harvest the battery like what we're used to. We understand that, we know what all that's about. So what they're saying in theory, in an ideal world, is that you're within 1 second of a car, you've come to turn 14, or the last turn on the circuit. It'd be great to then put use your wings along that first straight, so then you can harvest your battery on the straight. You can also overtake, and jobs are good. And you're also allowed to use it for the full lap. So then you get the aerodynamics from those wings for the whole lap. There's no DRS zones anymore. So that sounds like it should and could be fun. But as I've said, it's like it's just all like, what are you doing over there? What's your strategy? Who are you racing? It's going to be absolutely crazy. I can imagine that the midfielders and the people are, towards the back, are not going to be using their battery to re-overtake Max Verstappen if they can. They've got their own race. It's still, to me, it's still going to be a race of the top few midfielders, and then the ones at the back. They can use this in practice and quali, which they've been doing those simulations already. And it'll be freely available, can be used to defend as well, like DRS, unlike DRS, should I say, because you couldn't use that if you were the car in front. But it can be used to defend as well. Let's move on to the fuel, because we can get, I mean, we know that all of our respective television shows and pundits are going to be covering all this in great depth, and this is not what we really want to do, because for those 3 practice sessions we're going to be hearing it on repeat, and by the time the first race comes, or certainly quali comes, we're going to have a proper full understanding of it, and you don't really need my really untechnical, unexpert opinion on any of it. But the fuel, there's a couple of interesting things going on with this. It's now 100% renewable. It's sustainable fuel, not unleaded like it has been previously. Those fuel tanks are smaller, and yet the fuel now is only going to be 50% of the power, the remainder of the power, because the battery is the other 50%. A bit of FYI, the fuel providers, in case anybody is interested, Ferrari, Haas, and Cadillac are using Shell. Audi are using BP. Racing Bulls and Red Bull are using ExxonMobil. Aston Martin are using Aramco, and the Mercedes-powered engines are using the Petronas, not the Petronas. But at the minute, there's something going on. They apparently don't have the fuel as they want it, the Petronas, the Mercedes-based teams. They need to find a solution for Australia. So we have new engine providers this year. We've got Audi for Audi, Ford for Red Bull and Racing Bulls, Honda, Aston Martin, for Ferrari, Haas, and Cadillac, Mercedes, the usual Mercedes, McLaren, Williams, and Alpine. So Alpine have made the switch to Mercedes, so they seem to look a little bit handy in testing. If you notice, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, without Payne as well, LA, they've got the most wind tunnel time out of any team, so that I think that's come into effect as well. And it feels like Pierre Gasly and Franco Colapinto feel a little bit more comfortable with the car as it is anyway. And the Alpine has looked strong. I don't recall there being a point where they've had to spend a considerable amount of time in the garages or in the garage with any technical issues. The only time they would have done is when they're replacing the chassis. And as we all know, chassis take a very long time to replace the old one with the new. But all the teams would have been running different chassis at different points in the test anyway to make sure that those chassis are operating as well as they should be. But answering your question about Alpine, they do look like one of those teams that is ready for the new season. I think if you were to ask me which two teams would be most under pressure to perform going into the season before wheel had been turned, I would have said Ferrari and Alpine. But now, obviously, with the way testing has gone, it feels like Aston Martin, little we would have predicted, they're the ones on the back foot compared to everyone heading into Australia.
Yeah, I'm going to be covering that a little bit more when we're talking about the testing, because yeah, there's definitely a few things to discuss about some of the teams and definitely about Aston Martin. There were also a few other new aspects to the car, including lights, flashing lights more specifically, a little bit like vehicle hazard lights, and they're called indicators in the USA, Reese. So just blinkers.
We don't use those here.
I know you don't use those. But I am definitely leaving all of that to the pundits because there's one flash means something, two flashes mean something else, three flashes mean something else, and then if you come off the circuit, you're just flashing. And that's the blinkers, not the drivers are not flashing. And so there's much more to chat about with that, and our lovely pundits can discuss that. So, what you just said about Alpine, Tom, I mean, despite the testing, most of the cars still don't seem to be ready. George Russell's car completely shut down on the straight on day 5 of the test at full throttle, full speed, just cut out completely. And he said since that the upcoming 3 hours of practice is his main concern. Do you feel that all the issues will be ironed out by Melbourne, Tom, or can you see there still being problems?
Well, I think Mercedes are one of those that are capable of eradicating issues in a space of a couple of weeks. So I have every bit of confidence that they'll be able to turn it around. And there's also the thing, which I think you alluded to a little bit not too long ago, is the issues in homologating the new 100% advanced sustainable fuel, which Petronas have been working on. Because you mentioned about the teams who are running Mercedes engines, obviously running Petronas fuel. The homologation issue could be a bit of an issue. Could be a bit of a problem heading into Australia. So I'm hoping that that will get sorted out because if not, it may set those Mercedes powered cars back a little bit.
Yeah, well, we've not got long to wait to see, have we? If the cars don't improve this season, Reese, because I want to call you Riz, because I want to say Rizzo from Greece. You know, you just got that real
If only.
awesome, cool vibe about you. So Reese, what could happen, do you think, if the cars don't improve? Because I'm, say by race 6, and there are issues, there are start issues, people are complaining online, and uh, cars can't improve. Just what do you think might happen, say by race 6?
I don't think they have a choice. I think that Formula One is such a peak for performers, for engineers, for performers, I mean, like athletes, engineers, everybody, that I don't think not improving by race six is going to be an option. I mean, look at Red Bull with their second driver. They give them two races and then they're deleted. Alpine deletes the whole driver. I think that after that first race, we're gonna. I don't know that not improving. There would definitely be change. You know what I mean? I don't know if it'll be always change for the better. Uh, but I mean, if it didn't improve after six races, the internet would give them no quarter, no mercy.
I'm thinking go back to the 2025 cars by race six. I was just like, you carry on improving those in the factory, and let's just go back to this
And
car, and then we'll revisit this in next year.
and it's so crazy that it's been public knowledge that many of these teams did not focus on their car last 2 years, because they've been focusing on building and conceptualizing for this year. And those are the teams that are like, they seem to be so far behind everyone else. Like, you've had twice as long to think about this as other teams. I feel like I have questions.
So, of the list that I have, we've got Ferrari with their Active Aero, which is their spinning rear wing. Audi have got new angular side pods. Mercedes a new rear wing. They put a new rear wing on, sorry, on the final test day. Then Ferrari again have a flow conditioning device behind their exhaust, a rear winglet connected to the diffuser, which is one of the loopholes that they found. And that apparently is there to dump the biggest amount of drag so the car will perform better. And he'll say better, like just speak properly, better. Because obviously active aero is to take that drag away so the car can reach higher speeds. Williams and two other teams, I'm not sure of the other teams, have a new pin rod full suspension. Now, apparently, this is going to give aerodynamic gain, but it adds weight. So, any of those things stand out for you, Tom, or have you heard of any other sort of big changes to cars that might give a car an advantage?
Well, you mentioned about the rear wings on the Mercedes. I'm actually intrigued to see which ones that are going to go with for Australia. I mean, those that haven't seen, it's hard for us to describe when we don't have the images in front of us. But I am intrigued to see which ones they go with and how effective the new active aero will be for races like Australia that Mercedes will go with. Because I'm confident that Mercedes will turn up with a car that will be quick in a straight line. The side pods on the Audi look rather interesting as well for their first year since taking over from Sauber. I do like the look of it, and I'm looking forward to see how effective they will be come the first like half a dozen races or whatever. But I think it's just going to come down to he will be most ready as opposed to what parts each team has gone with. Because I think there are teams that are ready for the first race, and some teams feel that there is still some work to do. Because we know that upgrades are going to be brought in at some stage within the next couple of months. Because from the moment that data is collected from when the car's been out on circuit, I think it takes something like 12 weeks for upgrades to be brought to the circuit in terms of development at the factory before they are logistically brought over to the racetrack. So it's one thing to point out with which teams are getting it right with the parts that they've been brought with, so the parts that they've brought to the circuit with, and the design that they've gone for, and which teams have still got work to do. I think we know which teams have got some work to do, but more on that in a little bit.
Correct. And more on teams that have not brought everything to the test either in a little bit. I could spend an hour easy chatting about all these specifics and the new regulations, even though we've done quite well anyway on it. But obviously I won't. We need to get this, show on the road talking about testing. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that the three practice sessions in Melbourne are going to reveal or give us more answers anyway to a lot of these questions. Well, we've come to the end of part two, and there's just so much to talk about with it being pre-season. So if you can join us for part three, that would be awesome.